What's up, you guys? It's Patrick McCann from McCann Media and McCann Customer Modeling, and in today's video I wanted to record a brief summary of something that's on a lot of small business owners' minds lately, which is the new SBA loan program that was passed by President Donald Trump in the Senate, and what that means for small businesses. Because what it has is there's a section of that where small businesses can basically get a loan that is forgivable from the SBA if used for payroll-related items such as payroll taxes, municipal taxes, etc., or if it's used for rents or utilities. And these new loans are written under the Paycheck Protection Program, which is part of the new $2 trillion stimulus package that is meant to keep small businesses afloat and to keep their employees on payroll. And now, we don't know, I'm not a corporate loan officer. Obviously talk to your bank owner about all of this stuff, but basically there's a lot of good things and a lot of things that we still don't know about this package yet. And I basically wanted to record a quick video of my thoughts on it because I own 2 small businesses myself, and a lot of my friends and family actually own small businesses as well. And this is quite a big deal for us because all of us are getting, well, hammered basically by the by the coronavirus, which is not a good thing. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about it today, about what I've seen about it from talking to my business partners and some of my colleagues and friends in the banking industry, one of which is a corporate loan officer for our account at Fifth Third. Now, while we do know some things about this package, we don't know everything, but I just want to talk a little bit about what we do know, which is so far basically there are quite a few good things about this package, one of which being that the loans are completely forgivable if they are used over the next 8-week period after you apply for the loan and get it approved. Over those next 8 weeks, if you use all of that money or whatever money that you use out of that towards payroll-related items, paying rents or utilities, all of that is basically forgiven, and you don't have to pay that back to the government. That's what it means when they say that it's forgivable. But you will still have to pay interest on the amount that you spent and on the amount of the loan over that period. But basically, as long as that money is used for those purposes, it will be completely forgiven and does not have to be paid back. Now, the second good thing that is a part of this package is that the loan actually does not require any collateral or personal guarantee put down on the loan. So if, for say, 5 months from now you still have an outstanding balance on that loan, but for some reason your business goes out of business, that will not carry over to you personally like it would with a bank line of credit. And obviously that's a good thing because we don't want business owners scared to take out these loans if they feel that it'll impact them personally if, for some reason that they were forced to go out of business due to the coronavirus. And the third good thing that we heard from the Small Business Administration is that the loans have a relatively low interest rate of up to about 4%. Now, we don't know whether that's fixed or variable yet, which obviously it might depend on the bank because they are having the banks, like the major banks like Fifth Third, PNC, etc., as the ones that are underwriting and carrying these loans. So that might be something that the banks take into account on their terms and conditions, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, those are some of the good things that we know about it, but there are some bad things that some of you guys might not know about when it comes to these sorts of loans and how they've worked in the past. One of these quick things is the fact that it's a government loan, which means when you look at the terms and conditions and when you go to apply for it, there's probably going to be about 112 pages of legalese that you're going to have to read through if you want to understand what you're signing yourself up for. And if you don't have quite a few years of experience in reading contracts or making them yourself, that might be a bit confusing, so I don't really know. We'll have to wait and see on that one. And then the second part of that is that I know this personally because my business partner is a full-time firefighter, and he's seen certain packages like this in the past where the government will issue a loan that'll say something like, okay, so we'll give you guys this loan for this certain amount, and in return you guys have to bring a certain amount of people under payroll, like new firefighters or new employees, or other than that, or stop, or like make sure that you can't lay off anybody to keep them off unemployment. And when you have loans of this period, after the period of the loan, say 8 weeks, 6 months, etc., they'll often have what's called a paycheck continuation clause, which will say something along the lines of, if after the period of the loan, it was a forgivable loan, right? But if after the period of the loan, then you have to lay off some of those new employees, then you would basically have to go back and pay the full amount of the loan that you borrowed. And because like the purpose of what these loans are is to keep employees employed and under salary or be able to pay check and keep them off unemployment. So if they issue a small business, say like my remodeling business, where they shut us down because we're in Ohio, we had to put all of our employees on unemployment. And what the small business loan is supposed to do is to give us some form of incentive to keep them off unemployment and keep our guys working if possible, or at least keep them receiving money. Now, because that's the purpose of it, there's normally a stipulation in there to where if then after the period of the loan, even if you use all of the money and the loan is basically done, if then you're not allowed to lay off any of those employees and put them on unemployment. So if there is a paycheck continuation clause in there, it's not going to be as useful, especially if the crisis keeps getting dragged on past April 6th and further, which it's probably going to for a lot of industries, such as like hair salons that got permanently shut down, retail, etc. So if there's that clause in there, it's not going to be quite as useful, and we have to be more careful about that. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. And another thing about the loan is that it does not cover rents that were not under lease before February 15th. So this actually affects me personally as well, because me and one of my other business partners, we basically signed a lease for a new office that we were moving into, but the lease started effective on March 1st, which means that we're not going to be able to use this money to pay our rents for that office because they were not under lease before February 15th. So it's only going to cover leases and rents that were in place before February 15th of this year. Now, these are some of the good and bad things that we know about it, and obviously we have to wait until we have more information from the banks that are actually underwriting these loans, but we do have a lot of questions for them, and definitely talk to your loan officer about these, because there are quite a few things that we have still yet to figure out. And one of these is going to be the underlying terms and conditions, because really whether or not business owners are going to want to take this loan all comes down to whether or not there are underlying terms and conditions that make it worth or not worth our time, and obviously whether or not it's worth it to assume the financial risk of taking on a loan that we might have to pay back in full if there is sort of clauses and stipulations that we might not necessarily want to agree with. So obviously it comes down to the terms and conditions. And then another question that we're going to have to figure out with these loans is, what about non-corporate entities? And what I mean by this is, because say you own an LLC that files as an S Corp, or if you own a C Corporation or an LLC and you're the owner of that business, then basically you are able to apply for these loans. But what we don't know is, say if you have a business where you're a practicing lawyer but you're not incorporated, and you are basically a sole proprietor, what does this let you do? Because we don't know whether or not we're going to need a federal ID number to apply for these. So 1099 subcontractors or self-employed people are really it's in the gray area, and we don't know how they're going to be taken care of yet. So that's another thing that we have to wait for more information to come out about. And another big thing is, we don't really know how long that this is going to last, because I know for Ohio at least, we're under mandatory shutdown until April 6th. But based on data that we have from other countries, we might not be able to open up again until May or June. So if this extends later on, and you have a business owner that signs up for a loan under one set of assumptions that we're going to be able to go back to work at a certain time, and then that gets extended, then they might not be allowed to, under the terms of the loan, to reevaluate their position at that time. So if, say, for example, say if we're not allowed to go to work until, we thought we were going to be able to go back to work starting on like April 6th, April 15th, something around there. But then the government says that we're not allowed to go back to work until the middle of May, and now we have, due to something like a paycheck continuation clause, that we would have to then keep all of those employees on payroll over that time, but not be able to get another loan for it. Then that would basically put a lot of businesses just out of business, or put them at huge risk, because if they have to carry on those payments to their salaries and all of that payroll, but not be able to get compensation for it because the terms of the loan that they originally signed under had basically, the market conditions had changed after the maturation of that loan, then we've got a lot of questions on what we're supposed to do with our employees at that point. So obviously, like I said, I'm not a corporate loan officer. I'm just a concerned business owner with a couple businesses of my own, and I want to put out my thoughts about it from what I've seen and heard from some of my friends in the banking industry, and what they're learning about this as we go through now. And what we know now is not a full picture of what the package is going to look like, so definitely check with your banker this upcoming week, which is like March 30th until the beginning of April, to see what they are able to do and to try to find out what those underlying terms and conditions are to see if this is going to be worth your time as a small business owner. So if you're interested in applying for one of these loans, make sure that you talk to your banker, and they will be able to give you the full information that they get from the government on what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. So, but that's just basically my thoughts on it, and make sure that you talk to your guys' bankers about this if you're interested in applying for one of these loans, and hopefully this whole crisis thing passes sooner rather than later. So that's just my thoughts. Thanks guys, and I will talk to you soon.